Vice President J.D. Vance says some Democrats have said worse and says there should not be a rush to judgment.
By the way, if they were left-wing kids telling stupid left-wing jokes, I would also not want their lives to be ruined because they're saying something stupid.
What? Okay. Oh, hell no. That is the biggest lie. That is the literal biggest lie of all time. I love Hitler. Leaked messages expose young Republicans' racist chat. What's been also expected, even though it was, I guess, shocking for some of the chatters in here as well, is that the Republicans are defending it. What's even funnier than the Republicans defending it, like J.D. Vance, has, of course, been Jonathan Greenblatt. The ADL totally ignored, refused to comment on Elon Musk's latest great replacement conspiracy rant. Dozens of anti-Semitic comments and Holocaust jokes from young Republicans leak. The White House downplays it and defends people who made them. And the ADL and Jonathan Greenblatt say nothing, just like they dismissed Musk's clear-as-day Nazi salute as an awkward gesture. See how the ADL works, says Adam Johnson. And with all of the pressure on ADL to at least say something, and remember, Jonathan Greenblatt has called me someone who has spent his entire professional career combating anti-Semitism, me, a vile anti-Semite.
In an environment where you have social media influencers making baseless claims, people like Hassan Piker over on Twitch, or there's others on TikTok and Instagram saying wild, baseless things about Jews, about Zionists, about Israelis. Vlad, I worry that this could even get worse.
So what did Jonathan Greenblatt actually say about the Politico report? Let's take a look. Because, you know, I am an anti-Zionist, but also I abhor anti-Semitism. So what did Jonathan Greenblatt have to say about a group of young Republicans that were talking about how much they love Adolf Hitler? What was reported in Politico is offensive and very concerning, but I'm also glad that many leaders, including Elise Stefanik and Representative Mike Lawler, spoke out strongly and swiftly against these hateful statements. This is what leadership looks like and is how decency and morality can be modeled. Doesn't mention anti-Semitism, just vague, offensive, and very concerning comments. Doesn't mention Trump or the White House who defended these people. Zero calls to action, just hand-wringing. Jonathan Greenblatt has spent the last 2 years of Israel's genocide trying to get me deplatformed. He has been able to successfully deplatform other anti-Zionists who have also actively combated anti-Semitism, because the ADL is the Apartheid Defense League, first and foremost. The only thing that they care about is defending not Jewish people or combating anti-Semitism, but simply to weaponize false anti-Semitism allegations so that they can deplatform critics of Israel. Why does a self-described anti-Semitism watchdog and leading anti-hate organization in the world keep ignoring Republican anti-Semitism? Because they're a Zionist party, and to the ADL, this is all that matters because they're a pro-Israel lobbying group, not a civil rights group. And the only reason why Jonathan Greenblatt, after a 48-hour news cycle went by with J.D. Vance, the vice president, defending this the only reason why Jonathan Greenblatt finally said this wishy-washy ass statement is because he got pressured into it. Anyway, here's Adam Mockler talking about Charlie Kirk's producer refusing to condemn the young Republican group chat on stage and getting yelled at by Adam Mockler.
Listen, there has been a trend of, I think, let's just say, let's be gracious and say, in the era of Trump, maybe it's a reaction to Trump. I'm open to those discussions, but there is a justification for political violence. It shows up in every poll, and it's coming from progressives.
I have spent all of my formative years watching the President of the United States talk about the opposition party like they shouldn't exist. His claim to fame in U.S. politics was saying that Obama wasn't born in America. That is how he entered the political stage. He was famous before that, but that was his claim to fame. He was the first presidential candidate to ever chant "lock her up" on a political stage.
Adam Mockler is my favorite lib, for the record. I don't hide it. I am a fan of Midas Touch, as you guys know, despite our obvious disagreements on key issues. And I think he does a pretty good job. He is what Destiny wishes he was.
Stage. He tried to coup our government. And I live in this, let me finish. Listen. I live in the city of Chicago. Donald Trump, over the past 2 months, has not only posted an AI video of Obama being arrested, but then after that, he posted an AI image of Chicago being invaded. After that, he sent the National Guard to Chicago. So I've spent my formative years watching the president do this. And just think about this. We saw these Nazi group chats, which I'm sure you condemn, right? This Nazi group chat.
Well, we can talk about it.
Do you condemn it?
I want to talk about it.
Wait, so when they said gas chambers,
disavow.
when they say gas chambers, you won't. So you're like JD Vance. You just won't condemn this?
Well, I actually had JD on the show today. We had a whole conversation.
You guys can all condemn this, right?
Hell yes.
Thank you.
Hold on.
All right.
Hold on.
But
Chris, can you condemn that?
Here's the point, of course. But that's easy. What I'm
for him, but you know what? This is.
It's so funny that he's like, do you disavow pro-Hitler statements coming from Republican Party operatives? And Republicans are just like, I don't know about that. I mean, come on. It's just like, whatever, whatever. Who amongst us hasn't had a moment like that? You know what I mean?
It's not constructive, right?
Because what the constructive part is not, this is what's happening here, and I know both of you guys, and I want to bring Joe.
Of course, Cuomo's trying to defend the Republican on the panel here, like the overt Republican, current existing Turning Point USA guy on the panel by being like, it's not constructive. It's not. Not gonna lie, it feels kind of good to finally be doing condemnation politics after being the recipient of it for 2 years since 10/7. Yeah, once again, there are things that people cynically present as condemnation politics. When people go, do you condemn HasanAbi Piker for what he said? And then they insert things that are completely ridiculous, where they'll be like, oh, he's an anti-Semite. Do you condemn HasanAbi Piker, who's anti-Semitic? There is a reason to say that's bullshit. You're saying that about him because he's anti-Israel, not because he's anti-Semitic. He is not anti-Semitic at all. Yeah, of course, if I was running around in private group chats being like Adolf Hitler is awesome or whatever which obviously I would never do that because it's an insane position to have, it's a gross and violent position to have, then yeah, that's condemnable. It makes sense. It makes sense.
Politico says Peter Junta, who was the chair of the New York State Young Republicans, allegedly wrote in a text message, everyone that votes no is going to the gas chamber. In another exchange, Junta reportedly responded,
it's ironic because this is what the ADL was designed for. Like just this. The ADL's purpose is to call out this. That's what it's supposed to be. It's like, that's what it billed itself as. And in its origin, that's what this was supposed to be, the ultimate goal, which is whenever someone is like very obviously being anti-Semitic, you go, hey, this is wrong. Except they are so predisposed over there with like defending Israel and cynically weaponizing false anti-Semitism allegations against critics of Israel that they don't do the one thing that they're supposed to be doing, especially at a time when there's like an unprecedented rise of anti-Semitic conspiracies. So good job. How many times have they named me personally as the arch anti-Semite, both on television and also online? Meanwhile, they won't even name names on this. Like, oh, who's the one who defended these statements? It's the vice president.
Great. I love Hitler during a discussion about backing a right-wing candidate. Some Republicans have denounced the language, while Vice President J.D. Vance dismissed the messages as edgy, offensive jokes.
We're not canceling kids because they do something stupid in a group chat.
But reports say at least 8 of the 11 participants in the group,
the kids.
But Vice President J.D. Vance says some Democrats have said worse and says there should not be a rush to judgment.
By the way, if they were left-wing kids telling stupid left-wing jokes, I would also not want their lives to be ruined because they're saying something stupid.
What? Okay. Oh, hell no. That is the biggest lie. That is the literal biggest lie of all time. The State Department revoked the visas of 7 people that are on American soil right now with their existing visas. They took away their visas because of what they had said about Charlie Kirk. That happened 2 days ago on the birthday of Charlie Kirk. The State Department Trump's State Department has already stopped issuing visas to people for saying things about Charlie Kirk to begin with. That is bullshit. That's bullshit.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me, Abby, first and foremost. I have a lot of issues with the conversation around this particular story. I would tend to agree the comments in the thread ought to be condemned universally. But this is like kind of what you would expect, this kind of idiot, LARPing, edgelord nonsense inside of a private group chat. I think the words you used a moment ago, that they think they could say this sort of thing risk-free, consequence-free. Well, they were saying it in private.
Is woke coming back? Is woke actually coming back? I hope, man. I want woke to make a comeback so bad. Because I'm annoyed by woke too. But if there's like a woke and anti-woke force out there, I much prefer woke over anti-woke, okay? 100%. It turns out when corporations were like, we're not going to give you funding if you say openly, transparently racist, it turns out that really did keep a lot of monsters at bay. It turns out that was the only thing holding back some of these Hitlerian freaks, dude. And I say this as someone who would regularly get annoyed at woke. I yelled at woke all the time at the peak of woke.
And I'm sure they were saying different things in public. Do they mean these things authentically? In some cases, they almost certainly do. There has been a resurgence of white nationalist sentiment in this country. I think it's interesting, though, to try to trace this back and to think honestly about how we got to here. And I do think that a lot of the renewed interest in race and identity things for both noble purposes and otherwise has actually helped to create the circumstances that we see now. That is not erasing any of the responsibility that people have for embracing and endorsing these kinds of sentiments, even in private group chats where they're doing this kind of idiotic locker room talk. They deserve to face consequences.
I think the most consequential aspect of this is, once again, the fact that liberals only care about the aesthetics, because like the actual theory being put to practice is being conducted by the likes of Stephen Miller on major U.S. cities right now with the Department of Homeland Security. Like when these guys talk about like, oh, this is like locker room talk and some of these people believe it, but like, I don't give a shit about what these guys are saying in private when what they're doing in public is literally more violent and more consequential. Why is it that liberals only realize that this is f***ed up when it's people saying Hitlerian in private and not when they are doing Hitlerian in public? This has been my position from the start, by the way. I said this when the revelations first came out. It's not the language that they're using that is offensive. I mean, it is offensive, but the consequences, the real human impact of that sort of ideology being not only expressed, but being followed through on is the white nativist anti-immigration policy. A lot of people in mainstream media, because I do think that like a lot of liberals have radicalized against this admin in pretty meaningful ways, like average Americans have. But I think a lot of people in media still have no capacity to look at state violence and state policies that are morally repugnant and reflective of the Hitlerian promotion that they're saying is morally repugnant right now and say it's wrong, it's gross, it's Hitler. It's frustrating. It's frustrating to watch them do this. My point is, I hope people take it one step further and talk about the actual issue of consequence here, which is the unrestrained violence of this administration that not only says those things behind closed doors, but actually reflects on them with actionable policy items that harm people.
The comments in the group chat are terrible and stupid, but I find it way more interesting that J.D. Vance has chosen to defend it than these guys that nobody knows or cares about. Why did he choose that this is suddenly the sort of thing that he chalks up to a youthful indiscretion when some of the people in this chat were like a year or two?
By the way, J.D. Vance is 40 years old. So the people that he's calling children are like 5, sometimes 6 years younger than he is. Just so you understand, the people that he is calling children, at most like 10 years younger than he is, okay?
Too younger than him. He's 41.
Hard to say. Have to ask him. I'll tell you, did not defend it. I mean, the head of Young Republicans.
Right.
They exiled these folks right away. We took swift action, and I appreciate that accountability. I'm not going to defend it. I didn't even read some of these tweets, but they sound. I've heard they're bad, and I believe it. I bet a lot of these guys are the same people who troll me online for the most part. So I guarantee it's a lot of the same folks.
Yeah, they were calling him Eye Patch McCain, which low-key is a banger for the record. Like, I mean, let's be real. That's a good one.
On the other hand, why you're seeing some Republicans shrug their shoulders, I mean, I'll tell you why. Here's what they would here's their sentiment. We just watched Charlie Kirk get shot in the neck. You know, we watched our president, while he was campaigning, almost get killed. A bullet whizzed by his head. So there's real violence, and then there's this disgusting, despicable stuff that is said in private. And like, it is disgusting, despicable.
I agree with what he's saying. Woke Dan Crenshaw is right. Except no one seems to realize that the despicable, continuing, real violence is not just the adventurism of sorts or a singular instance of retaliatory violence from a lone actor, but it's actually the state's mechanism of violence. Mass deportations, death, destruction, kidnapping, detainments, unjustifiable, all of it. All of it is violent. That's what I think is way more consequential than what these guys love to call locker room talk. Hassan, the left are the only people that care about wokeness. You can't use it effectively rightward. No. Look at Dan Crenshaw. Dude, I talked about this basically in every election, but certainly in this last election cycle as well. There is a level of permissible racism, permissible misogyny, permissible bigotry that you can engage in, you can entertain, and people won't punish you for it. But when you go beyond that certain point, even right-wingers will go, ugh, gross, don't say that, I don't like that. It's the distinction between a guy who embodies all of the political virtues of a Klansmen who will still get very upset when someone says that they are a part of the Klan. It's like the N-word equation, okay? It's like the N-word threshold, and I don't mean nuclear. There are plenty of right-wingers who personally embody all of the violent, vile, racist stereotyping that comes along with this one word when talking about black people, who will actively shy away from using said word and will never defend it. That is beyond the confines of permissibility. Do you understand? This is the reason why a lot of Republicans who are in the public eye are still going, oh, this is abhorrent. This is morally repugnant. I can't believe it. Because these guys in the group chat were just straight up saying they love Adolf Hitler. You can't do that. You just can't do that. You can't do that. That's like you go above and beyond.